we have conflicts in different maybe countries, even it can be when you're interacting with the other countries, even among ourselves. So what is this about this conflict? And if you were to advise or to assist, what were you to use? Which style were you to use so that you can be able to manage this? And conflict is all around us. Even wherever you are sitting, like now you need to do this, someone needs to do this. So we're supposed to be agreeing that whatever you are doing is right or it's bad. So some might even say that conflict makes the world go around. It's true. Because as you are in that sense of you are giving your views, this one is giving the views, then from there you agree on how you move on. But if you are competing, this one wants to do this and the other one wants to do this, that is also another way of managing conflict, but is it a good way? So a situation or a state of things not being right or fine, that is what brings in conflict. When there is that state or there is that situation and things are not right or fine, that is a conflict. So we are asking, what is conflict? So it's unpleasant thoughts in most people's minds, the thoughts which are not pleasant, which are not good, and conflict occurs because people's interests clash. Even at the workplaces, people's interests clash. So what is all this about conflict and what we need to do? How are we supposed to manage it? And conflict is when two or more people have differences in ideas, in their views. Like now, I was asking which topics can we be able to cover because we don't have enough time. Some are saying this, some are saying this, but we have to come together. We agree because we have different views, different ideas, and the time is not there for us. So which one do you think we need to look at? So we come to a ground whereby we can be able to agree. And that is when we are coming to a neutral ground, then it means we are using some conflict management skills. Then they are not ready to understand or accept each other's ideas. So when I have an idea and someone has an idea and we are not agreeing, that's already a conflict. So conflict is a struggle between people, which may be either physical or between conflicting ideas. Conflict can either be within one person or they can involve several people. Even within yourself, remember when we were talking about the organismic self, you can have a conflict. It's like, do I do this or do I do the other one? When you have two ideas, when you have two maybe solutions you want to address, you really don't know which one. That is the internal one. The external is when you're involving other people. So conflict arises because there are needs. People have needs, different needs. People have different ideas, and that they are seen to be different. And there is no means to reconcile the dispute. So when we have these ideas, that we have different values, different needs, and each need we want it to be fulfilled, and it cannot because we are many, then this one can bring a conflict. And it is a necessary and permanent part of life. To have a conflict, by the way, it is something which is necessary and it is part of our life. So conflict is natural, and it can be slight conflict that causes no harm. You can have that slight conflict, which is not bad. It can be a conflict, can also result into severe damage. So conflict, it can either be good. So conflict itself is neither good nor is it bad. So when conflict is addressed maturely with an eye to a positive resolution, it can lead to growth among all the conflicting parties. So what matters here is how are you addressing this conflict? Are you the one who is going to assume that there's no conflict? We are going to look at it. There are some people or managers who see a conflict and they pretend as if they're not seeing it. We are going to look at that way of managing the conflict. So briefly, that is what is this, and we have different conflicts. I'll not go into that. What I wanted to address, that's what we talked. We have internal conflict, and we have the intrapersonal conflict when we're interacting with other people. So I want we talk about the types. Is it types or styles of conflict? I don't know whether they are here. These are symptoms of conflict, how to manage the conflict. But I want to look at the conflict management styles. After you have seen that there is a conflict, we have different needs, we have different ideas, we have different views. And how are we supposed to manage it well so that we can be able to move on? Because conflict, it's not bad and it's not good, but we say that it has to be there so that people can still be able to move on. So, and as I say, in an exam, they can talk about, they can pick on one style. Either accommodating, you talk about it. Avoiding, you talk about it. Collaborating, competing, and compromising. The ones I've seen in an exam, I've seen compromising and I've seen collaborating. And you find that when you are reading your notes, you might see we have conflict management styles. And it can also be called the conflict management techniques. It can also be called conflict management strategies. And they come up with all these. So when we have this conflict management, like for this one, collaborating, the question they had asked, explain the requirements for effective collaboration. And also talk about compromising as a style of conflict management. Okay, so that's what I'm saying. What we need to understand, for me, I feel like we need to look at these styles, these techniques, these strategies, so that we understand them and we know how they work. One of them is, we can start with accommodating. Accommodating is one of the styles under conflict management. And we have said that when you have different views in that organization, wewe unataka sijui mwende holiday December, mwingine anakuambia hapana tunataka tuende towards the end, wengine ni first week of, so ako ka conflict. We said it can be small or it can be severe. So when we talk about accommodating, this one is where we talk about give and take. And mostly it is used when you like a kind of, you set aside your own wants or needs. You set them aside. And when you also focus on those of the others, you know, they also have their views. You have yours, they have theirs. So you start now focusing on the two, so that you like kind of, you leave your own concerns behind when you have to accommodate. And you accommodate, once you leave yours behind, you accommodate the views, the needs, the ideas of someone else. And by the way, accommodating is almost opposite of competing. You remember this competing, yeah? It's opposite that competing. And it resolves conflicts by giving into the opposing party. Accommodating, it has to give into the opposing party. You take theirs, ati wacha tu tuachie hiyo, na sisi wacha tu ende na hii. So it's like you accommodate that. So you accommodate people, and so that you are described as you are nice, you are good, because you are able to accommodate anyone who comes in. And every member in both sides, they find satisfaction by helping the others to get their needs being met. You know, when you accommodate them and you take the ideas, so you want to be nice. Both of you mnataka muwe nice. Amutaki ma stress yapo. So both of you want to be nice. And it also tends to be very sensitive to the feelings of other people. When you are accommodating, you don't want to hurt anyone. You want to accommodate everyone in that period. And then it also tries to support. It's very supportive. It's very kind, and it's so nurturing, because when you're going to accommodate and you're going to accept the other people when they're coming in, then it means that you have to be nice. You have to be supportive. You have to be kind. You have to be nurturing. And it also portrays the spirit of cooperation, cooperation. And it's better to give than to receive. Unajua ile wanasema ile mkono inapeana ni afadhali kushinda ile ya kuchukua kila wakati. Hiyo ni accommodating. So this one, they are not able to achieve an outcome. that is acceptable. So it is like they're just there. You don't want to hurt anyone. You don't want to make anyone to feel like that this is what is going on. That is about accommodating. You give and take. Wacha kuchukuanga tu. No, it's not good. Then the other style is avoiding. We are looking at all this because you never know. The one they might ask if they're going to ask a question from conflict management. So when we talk about avoiding, it's also the issue of withdrawing. When you are avoiding, it's like you don't want to face that situation. It's kind of, it encourages or it requires that courage so that you can be able or you consider the other party. Yeah, you're trying to avoid. You pretend that it never happened, or you pretend that there is no conflict. There's no conflict existing. You know, unaangalia tu unapita, pretending there's nothing wrong. You are completely shut down. Yani ni kama ujui, kama unapita tu ni kama una assume. I don't know whether you have seen it, but some people assuming that things are not happening, and really they are happening. You withdraw, you are detached. That is the way of avoiding the avoiding management style, how you can be able to manage a conflict. Yani unaacha tu, unasema tu wacha ikae hivyo tulenge, itaisha tu. But have you sorted out the conflict? Okay. Then the other conflict you're going to look at is collaboration. And as I told you, collaboration, it has also come in an exam. How is it an effective way? So what is this collaboration? When we are talking about this collaboration, by the way, this is a win-win solution. Mostly, it's concerned to satisfy both sides. Hakuna ule ati you want to be nice, but you want whatever you are doing, you want everyone to leave that meeting when he or she is satisfied. And during the collaboration time, when you are managing that stress, the members there, they have to be highly assertive, that they are talking about their need, and this is what they need. This is what how they want to handle it. The other group also talks about it. They also express what they need and how they want it to be handled. So they are highly assertive. You know, assertive, you're not aggressive. You're sharing what you feel like it's right. And here, the members, both groups or both members from different groups, they have to be highly cooperative. Because I have to listen to, you have also to listen to me. We listen to both of you. And the goal here is to win-win solution, which involves, we want to integrate solutions. Whatever you are saying, this group is saying, we integrate that. We want to learn from each other. We want to merge the different perspectives you have come up with, and we find the way forward. We want to gain that commitment. We want to improve our relationships. Hatutaki tutoke kama tumekosana, but tukikosana tunakosana on principles, and we agree on principles that everything we are discussing here is for our goodness. So here we are all striving for. It is not easy. So conflicts here arises due to misunderstanding or poor communication. So for collaboration to be effective, then we have to be able to communicate effectively. We respect one another. We contribute and we be assertive. We be cooperative. That is when the collaboration will be effective. I don't know whether I'm talking or I'm talking to myself. Then we have the other style or the other technique, which is competing. Competing, this is a conflict management style. And here it's like we have to have a winner, we have to have a loser. Like now when we're having politics, we have to have one president. They have come up, doing how many, who wants to stand for this presidency. But one of them has to win. So it's a competition. So we have to have a winner and a loser. And here, it addresses conflict directly, bluntly, and it is active, and they're very uncooperative. They're very uncooperative. The aim here is to end the conflict as quickly as possible. Unarusha point, unarusha, utaki kujua, you don't care about the feelings of the other people. You are not caring about the other group. It's only about you wants to be heard. And this one, yes, you might get faster results, but it can it can be detrimental to the moral and productivity of the team. By the way, ukienda kwanza wewe nyamaza, you even don't know what you are doing. Sisi ndio tunafanyanga hii, we'll do this. I like using the example of politicians, because they're competing. You can see how they're talking negatively about the other group, how they're talking. Alafu na hii group naye anaongea juu ya ingine. They don't care, because for them, by that at times it can make some people to feel like hapa I don't belong. Ndio nasikia wacha niende kwa ground nisikie what people want, ndio nijue nasema nini. So one's own needs are advocated over the needs of other people. When you are competing, you are more concerned about your own needs than the needs of the other people. It is only you. Here, it relies on aggressiveness. That is aggressiveness style of communication. You are very aggressive. And aggressive, you talk whatever you want. When you hurt me, you intimidate me, then I feel ashamed I cannot be able to talk. You become a winner. So here, there's no regard for future relationship. I don't care about a relationship when you are competing. And here, the exercise is cohesive power that you want to show. In the circumstances or grounds, it's like it is more about, it's more about this individual than the other people. So whatever you are doing, me, I don't care, but I want to see myself winning. Okay? And this competing, you are more stressing on your position without considering opposing opinions or their views. Hutaki kuwasikia ni wewe tu. That is about competing. That is a style of managing conflict, but it might not be as effective if this is the style we are going to use. Okay? Then the other conflict, the other style is compromising. Okay, we looked at accommodating. When we talk about compromising, it's also being fair. And the aim here, when you're compromising, is to settle on a solution that is deemed fair. And here, everyone works to see, everyone works together so that one can completely get their way. And each team member in compromising makes a sacrifice to ensure that everyone has a small consolation. Aki asiende hivyo. Wacha tutu utaenda na hii, na si tutaenda na hii. Okay? So it's like you don't really being fair. You are fair to everyone. And the solution that is fair is not always a solution that is effective. You only want to make them to feel like at least naye amepata ka consolation there. So it is, yes, it's a management conflict style, but it's not an effective one, because how can you be fair when you know whatever is there is not right? Okay, those are some of the styles, and those are some of the questions I've seen them taking us through. Talk with other people, listen carefully, identify the points of disagreement and agreement. So mostly that is about what I wanted to talk about: conflict management. Go through these styles, go through these techniques, go through these strategies. This is how I've seen them setting questions from this area. They pick on one of those strategies or styles. Any question? Hello? So the signs and symptoms, how will you know that there's conflict, there's dysfunctional meetings, when there's anger, productivity slows down, high turnover, inappropriate communication. Hizo ni hizo za kawaida tu, anxiety, there's that repetitive disagreement, loss of trust, hapo hizo zote. So these are some of the symptoms which can be able to lead you know that there is a conflict. Okay. Any question on conflict management? I didn't want to go through everything because at times it will take us a lot of time, but I hope you have gotten something. If you have not, kindly talk. Yes. Can I move to something else? Hello.
Yes, we can move on.
Sorry?
We can move on.
Yeah, please, I told you use the minimal prompts. Ndio tutaona wakati ikimove, lakini mkinyamaza haki naongea peke yako. Okay, thank you. Let's look at, let me see the one which is there. I'm just picking them randomly. Okay, let me see downloads. Let me see which one comes first. Wow, this laptop, ukigusa tu kidogo inaruka. That's why it's not, let me see. So please, when you go read those strategies, because if you go through the past papers, you are going to see them, how they have set those questions, especially on conflict management. Okay, let me see whether it's here. My laptop has a problem, so I'm using someone's laptop, which I'm not used to. That is where I'm getting stuck like this. But that is a resistance. Yes. Let me see what I have. Okay. Okay. There it is. The other topic I want us to look at, it is psychological debriefing. Is it there?
Yes.
Psychological debriefing. I'll just give you a brief. When we talk about psychological debriefing, I'll start with what is trauma. Then after that, I'll go with what is psychological debriefing. When we talk about trauma, you know, some people say, I'm so traumatized. Trauma is not stress. When we talk about trauma, it's something which is so overwhelming, something which is beyond our control, something which attacks our psychological defenses, that, by the way, you cannot be able to use the defense mechanisms. And when trauma takes place, when a traumatic event takes place, a human being experiences that which renders him so helpless, so hopeless, and he responds with a lot of fear and horror. You see, when you're watching the horror, how do you call it, movies, At that time, whatever happens is very traumatic. You get scared. By the way, at the ways of career, that is when you become so disorganized. And trauma has to be an experience that which is so overwhelming. It has to be overwhelming to the client, not to the counselor. Whatever event which took place, it was so overwhelming to your client. And this traumatic experience, it lets one to be so helpless. And in its assessment, a reaction is very important. The way they are going to react and the way they are going to respond. And we say that these traumatic experiences, by the way, they are things which happen suddenly. You are not expecting them. It happens. By that time, you're not even yourself. You even don't know how, you cannot even be able to think or to reason. So, symptoms of trauma. How will you know that a person has gone through trauma or he has been traumatized? We have those intrusive thoughts. Intrusive thoughts, there are some people will be re-experiencing. Like after that trauma, ukifika mahali, you just start thinking about the trauma you have gone through. Okay. Can you give me a minute? I just respond to this. Just a minute, kindly, with due respect. Sorry for that. Sorry, I hope you accommodate me. Hiyo ni accommodating and ni compromising. So, when you're talking about these symptoms, there's that if there's a traumatic event you went through, let's say maybe thieves came to your house. Is that a traumatic event? And maybe that time they came, it's around 8 o'clock. Anytime it's up, no, let's say 2 p.m. Ndio wanakujanga sana, 2 p.m. to 3 p.m. So during that time, even after that trauma, after that event, ikifika to 2 p.m. unaanza relieving. Relieving is like you start imagining how the thieves have come, how they are stealing, whatever happened. Yani mpaka hata unakosa usingizi. Or when you're just sitting, you start re-experiencing what you also went through. Yani ni kama it is happening. That is about re-experiencing and relieving. Like the people get raped. That time you were raped. Anytime it reaches that time, you start relieving whatever you went through during that time. That is relieving. The other symptom to know that a person is traumatized is they become so hyperarousal. I want you to understand these symptoms because we are going to use them when we are going to educate our members in the group under debriefing. So that's why we are going through this. So under this, if one of the members after that traumatic experience, by the way, they will be very hyperarousal, very, very sensitive. They have excessive emotional response. Like if like the thugs came in, when they sit at a paka ikitembea hapa nje, watasikia. They are very sensitive. That experience, it evokes excessive emotional response. If it was hurting, if it was that fear, it becomes excessive. So they have people fear, but for them, anything small can make them to be so fearful. That is, they are very sensitive, oversensitive. That's what we are calling hyperarousal. Then some will be using the avoidance. Avoidance here It can be both psychological or physical. Physical is where the traumatic event took place. Kama pale kwa bomb blast, kama Dusut, kama sijui wapi, the Nakmat, those places, those are there. Or even where the accident happened, that is the physical venue or where the trauma took place. The psychological is how emotionally you are affected. Remember the one we have talked about, the hyperarousal, those emotions, they become very excessive. You find here both. You start, when you hear people talking about, please don't talk about it, because it's going to trigger your emotions and they're going to disturb you. So you avoid listening, even hearing whatever is going to trigger your emotions. That is the physical avoidance, is the one I've talked about here. Avoidance, you avoid visiting the scenes, or maybe seeing the pictures of the deceased, or even you don't want to watch those videos. Vitu kama hizo. Psychological, as the one we have talked about, is about what you have also experienced there. Then we have the multiple personality disorder. We have split personality, commonly in children who are being abused by parents. At times parents abuse their own children, but now they get those mixed feelings. And they are not able to distinguish whether this parent is in love with me or in love with their courts. So when they are being abused, when this abuse is happening, the child sees it as if it's not happening to him or her, it's happening to someone else. This is the split person, the multiple personalities. It helps her to bear the physical pain because they don't want to see that it is them who is maybe going through that pain. It is someone else who is going through that. So this is also another symptom of that a person is traumatized. Psychosomatic, this is now after you get traumatized. Naonanga you just become sick. Physically, the body aches. Yani mwili yote mpaka unasikia kila mahali inaniuma. You even cannot be able to explain. That is, those are psychosomatic syndromes. The pain in different parts of the body, you cannot even be able to explain. Ndio unasema naumwanga hata sijui naumwa wapi, sijui ni wapi. That is one of the symptoms of being traumatized. Or obsessive compulsive disorder. If you had that accident and maybe mahali ulikuwa ulishika damu, you keep on washing your hand. Mpaka unasikia ni kama unanusa hiyo damu. Then you keep on washing. You go back washing. You go back washing. Mpaka unachoka kwa njia. And because also you have that fear, there are people who check their doors whether they are closed. So unaangalianga maybe once or twice. Hiyo mlango mumefunga kweli. You go to hakikisha kama imefungwa. But the person is traumatized. They do it on and on and on until they get tired. That's what we call obsessive compulsive disorder, OCD. Or they have that anxiety, woga, they have that phobia, they have that fear all the time. So those people, you know that they are traumatized. Now, when we talk about psychological debriefing, what is it? This is not a counseling session, but it's a first cure. It's not a cure, but it's a first aid. And it's a group meeting of survivors who have gone through those traumatic events. And they gather together to discuss their experiences. And it is done so that we prevent what we call post-traumatic stress disorder. And this one, it helps people to cognitively understand of what they have gone through, because cognitively they get disorganized. They cannot be able to think or to reason. That's why you see someone amepata accident, anatembea akiwa na kiatu moja. Or someone after that trauma or at that scene where the event has taken place, they are walking towards a different direction of where they're supposed to be going. They are not themselves because cognitively they are disorganized. What is the reason why we have to do this? That is debriefing. Why do we have to do debriefing? And this is what you're going to tell the members, that the importance of doing this debriefing, it's going to help us to ventilate the impressions and feelings. Like when we talk about, you help members in that group so that you can be able to share the impressions. Is like, what did you touch? What did you feel? What did you smell? All those ones, what did you see? The feelings is, were you hurt? Are you emotionally affected? Do you have that guiltiness in you? Did you have that anger? They can be able to express all those emotions. Then this debriefing, it's also going to promote that cognitive reorganization because they're cognitively disorganized. It's also going to decrease that uniqueness, sense of uniqueness, or abnormality. You know, you'll be seeing yourself being hypersensitive. You'll be seeing yourself maybe using the avoidance. You'll be reliving or re-experiencing. And then you are like, am I normal? But when you are in this debriefing, it's going to bring in that sense of uniqueness and that abnormality reaction. We tell them it is okay to react that way. What is not okay is what took place. Then here, it's going to help you so that now you are telling them, this is what you'll be telling them. There's a point I'll talk about it. This is now where you mobilize some resources from within that group or outside the group, where you can be able to get some assistance. This is where you prepare the preparation of experiences such as symptoms or reaction or nightmares, which you're going to experience thereafter. You're going to identify areas for further assistance. And this debriefing should be done within 72 hours. That is within 3 days. If it's not done, then it will take you to post-traumatic stress disorder. And when you're doing debriefing, you don't do it where the traumatic event took place. You take them to a safer place. Who should go through this debriefing? The people who are involved in that traumatic event, the primary victims, the ones who are maximally exposed to that trauma. Then we have the secondary victims, like relatives of the primary victim. Then the ones who are rescuing them, and the people who are involved in the committee during that disaster, or the people who have that emotional equilibrium. Like, for instance, do you remember what happened in Western? The school whereby students were running that stipend and they were stepping on each other and children died in that school. You were so far. Maybe if you were in Nairobi or you were in Mombasa, you watched that, but emotionally you were affected. So you can bring, these are the people who are saying emotional equilibrium. You are not at the scene. They are not your relatives, they are not your friends, but you saw what was happening and it affected you. Such like people, you can bring them together and you form a group. And those who persuaded others to the cause of that trauma, like maybe someone didn't want to go to a supermarket like Nakumatt. So anakuambia mimi naenda tu hapo Tom Mboya. Alafu naambia polisi hapo iko supermarket. Enda tu niletee this and this. Na huyo mtu akisitaki kwenda supermarket, but you send them. So such like people who sent that person to that supermarket, and in the process, he was involved or she was involved in that trauma, you form a group because this person will die because of that guiltness. Then we have now stages of debriefing. And in an exam, they have said, one of the exams they said when you go through the past papers, talk about the phases of debriefing or the stages of debriefing. So those stages of debriefing, you need to talk about the first thing before even you start that debriefing. What you do, the members have to sit in a circle. And when you are doing debriefing, by the way, there is a question they also ask, what are some of, when you're dealing with a group, advantages of group therapy, group counseling? And this is one of the group counseling. Like we said, it's not really counseling, it's a first aid, which will help you to go for counseling later, but it's form of a group. So they sit in a group, in a circle. And under this circle, you have two facilitators, the main and the co-facilitator. And in that circle, you put a stool with a serviette. Then from there, you start, and that group, your session will take 2 to 2.5 hours when you're doing a debriefing. Remember, on one-to-one is 45 minutes to 1 hour. But for this one, it has to take 2 to 2.5 hours. So after they have sat, now the first phase is for you to go through the introduction. I'll just talk about it so that the details, you'll be able to get them later. Under this introduction, this is whereby you introduce yourself, who you are, the qualifications you have for this debriefing. If you have ever done debriefing anywhere else other than that group, you talk about it. If you have not done another debriefing, usiwaambie this is the first debriefing, nyamaza hivyo. You tell them, I'm Flora. I have been trained in psychological debriefing. I have done debriefing for Finlay, homegrown. Serena Hotels, and the ministries. And by the way, that's what I've done. And that is about me. Then my co-facilitator, we also introduce him or herself. I'm so and so. I've done debriefing. Usiwambie mi sijafanya debriefing. This is the first one. You keep there. Then you also talk about the objectives. You remember the objectives you have just looked at? You talk about these objectives. You tell them the reason why you're having that debriefing. How is it going to help them? This meeting is going to help us so that we can be able to emotionally express ourselves, and we vent out those emotions, and we talk about what maybe we touched, we saw, we smelled, and during that time is going to help us to coordinate. You talk about all this. Then after that, you also talk about the norms. The norms, like these are the group norms which are going to guide us during these 2 hours when we are going to be here. And then from there, you can ask them if they have any question before you continue. Then after that, you welcome them. Now they start sharing about what it was. And here, as they are in a circle, you ask one question for each phase or stage. And after you ask, maybe you can ask, how did you come to learn about this event? Or how did you come to learn about this traumatic event or this accident? If maybe it's a relative. And or if it's a victim, the primary victim, how did you get involved in this? What exactly happened? So you want them to narrate. You want them to put down the facts the way it was. Ilifanyikaje. This is about facts. And when you have asked that one question, you ask one member after you, anyone can start. After you start, you pass it to either side, and everyone in the group should participate. There are some who might not be willing to share. It is okay, skip them. Let the other members share, but remember to give them that chance, because the sense here, we want everyone to participate. And that is why we usually, when we are doing this group therapy, the members in that group, they have to be at least 8 members and maximum of 12 or 15 members. We don't want them to be too many because they will not be able to have a chance to share. They should not be too few because they will not be able to have experiences to share with one another. Then after they have talked about the facts, wamekupatia hiyo story, how it happened. Mi nilitoka, nikaenda, nikapanda gari, driver alikuwa anaendesha vibaya. Tunamwambia kwa gari, tunamuelezea hii. All those ones, mpaka what happened. Then after that, what came to your thoughts? What are those sensory impressions? What is this you felt like you touched? Unajua inaweza kuwa uliguza lakini hujui uliguza damu, uliguza matope, uliguza nini? Yeah? What did you see? Ulisikia harufu gani? So they talk about it. What came to your mind? Mimi nilifikiria nimekufa. Nilianza kufikiria watoto wangu. You know, that is what came to your thoughts. Nikiangalia hivi naona damu kila mahali, ninaona kama mkono imeenda because blood was everywhere. So that is what they touched, the blood. So and wanajiangalia kwa mafikira, mimi nilifikiria mguu yangu ilimeenda. Kumbe ni damu imejaa hapo na mguu bado iko lakini vile imevunjika. So they're telling you what it is. Then everyone in the group has to share. Then now it comes the 4th phase, which is very, very emotional. How did you feel? Because how did you react to this trauma? How emotionally has it affected you? Well. This is the phase, by the way, which is worse. By the way, like 1 week ago, I had a debriefing because I'm a retainer in one of the organizations. And one of the staff members lost both parents within 1 week because of COVID. It was so traumatic. Wameacha mama hospitali, wameenda kuzika mzee on a Friday, coming back on Saturday night, mama amekufa. So you can imagine, mzee ndio huyo, mama ndio huyo. So wanaenda wakizika, it was so traumatizing. So when we are taking them through all these phase, wanapiga story, vile mama alikuwa, vile baba alikuwa, what came to your thoughts? Aki huyu tulishindwa, lakini hawawezi kufa. Hani wanaweza kufa tu hivi, si watu wanapona. Then after that, when it became emotional, imagine losing both parents. It is something which is so hurting. I've been waiting to receive a call. Even these videos tunatuma kwa social media, I'm not seeing, and they cried. This is when they become so emotional. Some are so guilt because like one of the daughters said that I saw a missed call of my mom, but my phone ilikuwa mteja. So naona ile nakwambia you attempted to call. So when she was told the time the mother passed on and the time this phone was attempted, it was like in a space of 30 minutes. So she asks herself, what exactly did my mother want to tell me? Up to now, I really don't know what she wanted to. It is so hurting. It is so what? In fact, they cry. This is the worst phase in a debriefing session. They talk about it. They have a lot of anger. They are like saying, why is that? Does this God exist? Because the mother was a pastor and she was praying so hard. Na huyu Mungu kweli yuko. Na hapo tusaidia. I'm so hurt. Someone is so guilty. I wish I could have responded earlier. I wish I had money, I take her somewhere. So emotionally, they all expressed. It was very emotional. Then after that, now you try to normalize the situation, phase 5. You try to normalize the situation for the clients. And remember, this is what I told you. Remember the ones we looked at the symptoms? That a person is traumatized. So you normalize for them. It is okay to feel the way you are feeling. It's okay to have that anger. It's okay to have that guilt. What is not okay is the event which took place. And remember, even after this, now you are educating them. You might be experiencing some, you'll be so hyper, so you'll be very sensitive in very small things. You might be using this avoidance. Mpaka nikuuliza during this burial, did you take videos? Have you watched them? Zikai hata sitaki kuziona. You see, and we tell them that is about the issue of avoidance. Please, if possible, pole gradually be watching them. And you might even be re-experiencing what maybe has happened to your parents, or maybe you might be having that obsessive compulsive disorder. All those ones, you educate them, but you try to normalize that those symptoms, they are okay, but after that you need to seek some help. Then after that, after that you go to the, you go to the 6th phase, and this 6th phase, wow. The 6th phase, this is whereby you ask them about their future plans and how they're going to cope after that traumatic event. How have they planned themselves? And what is this? How are they going to cope with this situation or to live without those parents? How are they, whichever trauma they have also gone through, they talk about it. So they talk about their plans, like me, what I've said. I don't want to be sitting alone. I want to have people I share with. I want also to prepare myself. Even when I die anytime, you find that I'm closer to God, depending with the faith of that person. And those coping mechanisms is just, how are you going to accept? And you move on. Then after that, you'll go to the last phase, which is the disengagement phase. Disengagement phase, this is where you are going to terminate. You're going to terminate you are meeting with your client, this disengagement phase. You're going to terminate your relationship with your client. You're going to get from the client what they learned, maybe, or how they have benefited from that session, what you have picked from that session about them. And also, this is where you give them the contacts where they can go and seek further help, where maybe you give them those contacts. You also give them your contacts, and the co-facilitator also gives up their contacts. Then from there, you ask them maybe whether the meeting has been helpful to them. Then after that, now you disengage the meeting. That is about psychological debriefing. And in that exam, they wanted you talk about these phases of debriefing. Swali. I know I'm talking so much. By the way, this one takes is a training for maybe 4 days or a week.
Yeah.
Munanyita kitu, munashika kitu, ama naongea peke yangu?
Tunashika.
Okay, but at least when you get that, when you go back to revising, you'll be utakumbuka kakitu kamoja, so it can be able also to assist you. Okay. Any question on debriefing? So the question which I've seen coming under debriefing, it came under those phases, but also even in your workplaces, you can be able to organize for this debriefing. Debriefing, it doesn't mean that, like if you have a colleague, maybe one of your colleague members passes on, you can do debriefing the people in that department or in that unit, if they are at least 8 or so, because they've undergone a loss. Or you can maybe someone who was very close to you has also been affected. Hello, are you there?
Yes.
Nimefungua vitu nyingi hapi, hata sijui niko wapi. I'm looking for that so that I share it. I don't know why it's not opening, but it is not in PowerPoint. Let me see whether it's going to show. Yes, there you are. I'm getting lost here. I don't know. Okay. Let me try to share. This one is not in PowerPoint. Let me see whether it can serve the purpose. We want to look at loss and grief. Loss and grief. Hii sasa sijui vile nitai-enlarge. Ngoja. Hii vitu ni kujaribu, try and error. Can you say something? Okay. Like, are you seeing something?
Yes.
Okay. The other topic which is here is about loss. And we also have loss and grief. And when we talk about these terms, and it's good also you as HR, please, try to understand this so that you don't wait for you to lose a relative or a person who is close to you, so that you know how it feels to help a client. Because this one I saw once in my workplace. A person loses a mother, and then you tell your boss you are going for the burial of your mother. Anakuambia anazikwa lini? Friday. Na hizo ni Monday. Fanya kazi utoke hapa Thursday as you travel. Akamwambia I've told you. Haya, huyo akafuata because the boss is always right. So she waited, she went for the burial of the mother, she came back. Hardly 1 year, less than in fact 1 year, the boss lost the father. From the time he received the message, mpaka akamaliza burial, hakuonekana hiyo ofisi. Then when he came back, akauliza, haya, you mean this is how it feels when you lose a parent? You should not wait for that. And that is why you said you try to empathize. Put yourself in the client's shoe. That's why you are getting this information, so that when you're out there, if a client maybe has lost someone who was very close to them, please help them to go through this loss and grief. So when we talk about grief, what is grief? Or what is a loss? When we talk about a loss, A loss is like when you hate something which you valued so much, and then it is deprived away from you. That is a loss. Kitu ulikuwa unaamini sana, unaipenda, you valued it, it was very important to you, and then it goes. And by the way, there are some things we own and we don't see. Naambianga sasa hii ni nini? Hata kaka laptop kananisumbua kama aka kangu, hata kakibiwa, wacha kaguzwe, is when you know that is a loss. So when we'll be going through this, we'll be, sorry. So that is a loss. So what is this grief? When we talk about grief, and by the way, when you talk about loss and grief, this is universal. These are universal things. They are inevitable. There's no way you can be able to avoid this grief in our lives. It happens in one way or the other. And when we talk about grief, grief itself, this is a process of psychological reaction to one's perception of the loss. Yes, it has been deprived away. So how do you psychologically react to that loss which you have gone through? And this psychological, when we talk about psychological reaction, we say psychological, how to do with your thoughts, your attitude, and your feelings. The social aspect is about how you behave or how you act, how you relate with the others after that loss. The physical, you can have that physical loss whereby we say, how did you react? And this is the physical is about the health and bodily symptoms after the loss. So as far as this grief is concerned, it is a continuous process because we say that this is how we are reacting when you perceive the perception you had towards that loss. It can also involve changes over time, which comes and goes. And we said it is a natural reaction to all kinds of losses, not just death, by the way. I've said about the laptop, you can lose someone very close, you can lose your virginity, you can lose your status, you can maybe get demoted. That's a loss. So anything you had so much value for, it is taken away from you, that is a loss. And it is based upon unique individuals. The way you perceive that loss is not the way I'll perceive it, because there's a colleague who lost a father, a neighbor where we were staying. Baka tunamuuliza mama so and so, aki, sasa mpango ya babako ni aje? Ananiambia, ngoja hata mimi na ngoja kwa newspaper. So it depends. We are all different. We react differently. We are going to look at it. Then we have this mourning. Mourning, people mourn. When we talk about mourning, like it refers to consciously or unconsciously process that goes through when experiencing this loss. This is a gradual and they undoes the psychological ties that bound one to his loved ones. Like, for example, we have people, like when you are mourning, you are crying, you are wailing, you are shouting. So it helps one to undo those psychological ties. I really like, with due respect, the people from Western Kenya, Nyanza, they're professionals in this. But the people from Central and the other areas, with due respect, you mourn professionally, which is okay. But it will not help you to undo those psychological ties which you have with the deceased or with that loss. But when you mourn and you cry and you express it, by the way, it helps one to learn to live healthy life in a new world without him or her. But when you keep it to yourself, alafu usikie Flora amekufa leo, it will trigger yours. And utalia sana ambako nasema tulikuwa na Flora only for 2 hours. Na ndio analia hivi. Kumbe hata lili Flora analilia mwingine. Then we have bereavement. This is now the state of having suffered that loss. To be bereaved means one has suffered a loss. That is now when we talk about bereavement. Then we also have anticipated death. Like anticipated death, it's like you have a person who is ailing. And you keep on visiting this person back on a jambia, guy. Waki atafika kesho. Waki akifika kesho, Mungu ni mwaminifu. You are anticipating anything. And by the way, that time, you are even undergoing a grief. You are even mourning within you, but it is like it has not really come. So when you hear, unasema Gai hata alikuwa amesumbuka sana, wacha tu apumzike. You are anticipating death. It refers to that process which a bereaved person goes through in phases of grief. They start to undo the bond. Mbako unajiambia huyu Mungu tu amchukue, akisiapumzike. Sasa akikaa hivi ataishi aje? So both the dying and those that will be living, the ones who are alive, experience this process. Even there are those who are there wanasema mimi nimeumia sana, naomba tu Mungu anichukue. Ndio naambianga achilia mtu aende ndio apumzike. Then we have complicated or pathological grief, and this is when grief becomes chronic. And this is when it is prolonged grief may be masked or hidden in psychosomatic syndromes. You don't want to grieve. You are keeping it to yourself. Instead of you expressing it, you are pretending things are okay, but later, kutakuwa na kama you are very sick, you start becoming so lonely, you start now even talking to yourself because it has become now complicated. Then we have exaggerated. When we talk about exaggerated, this is whereby some people, like, I like, with due respect, people from Nyanza and Western, they are very good in this. These are the people who can come and they scream, they wail, they can talk about the deceased person, they can roll down, they roll, they really cry, they really shout. So that is, this is where all signs of grief are exaggerated, wailing, and talking about that person. Delayed grief. By the way, this is when you have undergone a loss. Instead of you expressing those emotions, being yourself and you let it be, you keep it, you hide it, you pretend things are okay. You postpone your grief. Yeah? And when someone else dies, unafikiria mtu analilia the person they have gone for the burial. Kumbe ni unfinished business they had with their significant other. And this is what I used to see in the village. Those old ladies used to come for the funerals. They really cry, they cry. Kumbe hata wako wanalilia wale wamekujia hapo. Wanakumbuka mababa zao, mama zao, watoto wao, mandugu zao. Those are delayed grief because when they underwent that loss, they never grieved. Please always, when you have undergone a loss, let it be. And that is why people say, like men in the house, that they cannot be able to grieve. Because what will people say when they see me grieving? Okay? So here we say that it's whereby the feelings or the pain which you are going through, let it be. So let it not be reactivated by the other one. Types of losses, you are not be able to go through all of them. It can be physical, it can be symbolic. The physical one is losing something tangible, a friend, a pet, a pen, a laptop, a house, all those ones. Yeah? Symbolic, this is psychological in nature, which can like the person, like aspect of person's social interaction. It is abstract, by the way, and cannot be tangible. Like when you lose your status, losing your job, there's that separation. Now some people say, me, I want to be separated, I want to divorce. Wacha ikuje ndio utajua ni mbaya. Afadhali ukae na huyo shetani yako ulichagua. So when it comes, ndio unajua haya, afadhali nikae nayo. When you lose your virginity, those are symbolic ones, all those ones. So the loss types are different. So how they manifest, I'm not going to talk about it. I'll go to determinants of grief. What makes grief to be more painful? One of them, or like what determines the intensity of that grief? What determines that intensity of the grief? One of them, the social support system. Like after you have undergone a loss, and we said it can either be something or someone. So if the kind of support that people have when they are grieving, like, are you there to help these people when they are going through this loss. Munaingia ndio ile tunasemanga tuende tukawafariji, yeah? By the way, that is a support system. The grief is not as intensified as when you open the door, mko peke yenu, mpaka jioni mko peke yenu, no one is there for you. That one is going to intensify the grief. The other determinant is the relationship. How are you relating? How close were you? Yeah, with either that item or that person. Were you valuing that person? Were you valuing that item? Did you take a loan? What commitments did you put there? Like the example I gave you, my neighbor was telling us, ati ngoja hata mimi ningoje kwa newspaper nitawaambia. So they were not close. So she was not affected. And this is the real biological father. Anasema yeye ndiye alifanya hata maisha yake karibika vile iko saa hii, because she never went to school, because the father was not there for them. But if you are so close with the deceased, or you had an attachment with whatever you lost, the grief is going to intensify. The circumstances surrounding the death, by the way, it depends. Like if you are anticipating death, the intensity cannot be the same like when it happens suddenly. So if you're expecting or anticipating and the sudden one, it is so bad. Like if maybe someone was just, like nowadays someone just wakes up, goes to work, na ana collapse na anaenda. That one can be able to intensify their grief because we're not anticipating this. But if it's a person who has been ailing, by the way, so it depends with the circumstances surrounding that death. The other determinant is about the concurrent stressors. When we talk about concurrent stressors, it's like have you gone through other stressful issues? Like as you have maybe you have lost the deceased one, eh? Then you start having other issues coming up after that loss. Where kuna bill hospitali, you need to organize, you get transport, even the coffin, you take the body for the burial, and then the relatives are asking for the title deeds. Alafu wanauliza manguo mpaka wanakuambia ile jacket hujaleta, ile alikuwa anapenda kuvaa. Let the logbooks, there's those concurrent stressors. By the way, it makes the grief to intensify if they keep on pressing you in that way. Yani unaangalia bill, ama unaangalia title deeds, ama unaangalia death certificate unanyang'anywa na huku, ama they want everything from the house. By the way, it can intensify the grief. Historical factors, like how have they handled the losses in the past? Did they want grief, or did they suppress their grief? Did they grieve during that time, or were suppressed? And by the way, like someone was saying, yeah, ikifika mazishi anatuma tu pesa aendi. Then it came a time he lost the mother. After that, he came back and he was asking, guy, this is what it means when someone loses a parent, because it was the first one. But the ones who have lost, you have lost, like I've lost my brother, I've lost 2 sisters, I've lost my father, I've lost my mother. So those historic factors. Now when I hear about death, Nikama, how did you handle the other one? It becomes easier. Like some people make it like, tushaskia, hata tulienda through, but if it is the first one, the intensity is very high. But once you have gone through it, but it's not as bad as when it is your first time you are going through. Wakati kifo imekanyaga nyumbani. Najua some of us inakanyaganga kwa neighbors, eh? But now when it comes home, and it is the first time, it will intensify. So I don't want to talk about the children because of time. How do we, I don't want to go through, okay. I'll go through the phases, but I'm not going to use the ones which are here. And this by Elizabeth Kobler. Let me see. I want us to look at the phases of grief, because this is one of the questions which I've also seen them talking about. But I want us, let me see the ones which are here, but I'll give you the ones you need to follow. Let me see, shock. guilt, anger. Okay. I want you to look at, maybe, let me put it. Denial, anger, beginning, depression, acceptance. So the phases of grief, So don't go through this one. I want you to look at these ones, because these phases of grief, they are by Elizabeth Kubler-Ross. She came up with 5 phases of grief. The first one, so assume these ones. I want you to look at those phases of grief, and the first phase under for Elizabeth Kubler is in denial. The first phase of grief, according to Elizabeth Kubler, is denial. Being in denial, you are just told this one has happened. Your house has been demolished. Na ulichukua pension yako yote ukaweka hapo. You took a very huge loan from the bank, you constructed na imewekwa chini because iko kwa ile Kiambu gavana alikuwa anaitanga aje, hii mnasongesha kamaji alafu muweke hapo. So and again it's put down. You deny. Even when you're told someone has died, unakata. No, it cannot be. Huyo nimepea chakula, huyo tulikuwa na yeye. It cannot be. After you go through that denial, the second phase is you have that anger. You start asking yourself, God, how can it be? That is so bad. I have really prayed. I've done ABCD. You have that anger. So the second phase is anger. The third phase is bargaining. After having that anger, hasira yote, then you start, God, why me? Why not other people? Why has it come again to my family? You are bargaining. God, I pray so much. I even fasted for my mother or for my relative or for that property. What is this which has happened? You start bargaining. Then the fourth phase is you go to depression. That depression, this is whereby you feel so helpless. You feel so helpless. You feel like there's no meaning of living. You feel that you don't need to exist because you don't have any value. That is going to that depression. Then after some time, you'll go to the fifth phase, which is acceptance. And acceptance, not that you have really accepted the death, but it's like you want to accept whatever has happened, then you look at ways on how to cope and you move on. Because if you continue being in those other phases, you need now to accept that whatever has happened, it has happened. And the other activities of responsibilities, they have to continue. How are you going to replace the roles the deceased was taking care of? Who is now going to take care of them? How are you going to adjust so that you program yourself so that life can be able to move on? Those are the phases of grief. Denial, go to anger, you bargain, you go to depression, then now you go to acceptance. Those are some of the phases. Then I want us, we look at how do you call it? The interventions for the person who is going through loss. One of them is we need to avoid those platitudes. Like platitudes are those statements or those words which we mostly use which are not helpful. Like as I'm sitting, if my pen falls down, mutaniambia pole. If I was taking tea nimwagikie, mutaniambia pole. When I break my leg, mutaniambia pole. When I lose a person who is very significant to me, bado mutaniambia pole. So this pole, is it really helpful? It doesn't add any value. So I know how you feel. I understand. Take it easy. How do you know? And you have never lost a mother. How do you know? And you have never lost. This way we say, I can try to imagine what you're going through. And this is where also we like using those statements. I'll talk about it. So these are things we need to avoid. Kwambia mtu pole, these words like someone has lost someone, mnaenda kumstembelea, like unamwambia Flora pole, all will be well, be strong. I know it's so difficult, mpaka unajiuliza sasa natakana nimwambie nini. You need just to be there for your client. So what we need to do, some techniques we use when we are helping a person who is going through loss and grief, you use that evocative language. I know there are some people, mnaonanga pale kwa obituaries, at resurrection, God loved you so much, more than us. He has slept, he has resurrected. Mpaka unaulizwa, now what are you talking about? So it means at he is sleeping. Amelala na amuki. So the counselor here, you should use those tough terms. Like so that you can be able to evoke those feelings. Like, so the person has died. He's not resting. He has died. Najua ukiongea hivyo mtu anasikia, wacha kuongea hivyo, amepumzika. Amepumzika aje? So this brings out the reality home. And it can maybe stimulate those painful feelings. And that is what we need. When they stimulate those painful feelings, it's helping them so that they can be able to vent out those emotions which are hurting them. So let's not be telling people he's sleeping, he has resurrected, he is resting, God loved him so much, amekufa. Then, use of symbols like the bereaved. Have the bereaved bring symbols of the deceased, that is symbols that could be reading letters or written by deceased. Okay, I know, like there's a time I was talking to the people who are HIV positive in one area, and they had a group. So as we were there, walikuwa na hii kitabu wanaandika, how do we call it? Ni kama unaandika history yako. I've forgotten the name, so that in case you die, wanasema hii wakati ulipeleka watoto wako outing, hii wakati ulienda kuvisit watoto wako shule. Ati sasa when you die, they'll be coming and reading and remembering you. If there were some videos you had recorded with your deceased, or there were some audios you had recorded, you listen. Kama kuna vitu alikuwa barua alikuwa na kuandikianga ama alikuwa naandika wakati fulani, mnasisoma. By the way, it becomes so painful, but that pain is the one we want, because that is that is a journey which you have started for getting healed. Then the other technique is you can let people draw. Like when I told you about the shield, if we had time, each one of us, we need to put it in drawing. Because even those young children, when we do child therapy, we use it by them drawing. They draw something which doesn't make a sense. But now after drawing, unauliza now, what is this you have drawn? Kuna mahali moja wamefikirisha, wamekuweka nini dash, wanasema hii nafunga hii macho yake, ndio isione ikuje kuniguza. They will tell you so much from that drawing. So even that drawing, it can help to express, they can be able to express their feelings, they can reflect on their thoughts, their experiences about their deceased. So drawing is also another way of helping clients. Oh, this is now the book, the memory book. This is the name I was asking, whereby they include stories about the family events, their poems, they draw various members, all those ones. Role playing, there are so many, those imagery, those are the ones you can be able to use when you are helping your client who is going through depriving, or who is going through loss and grief, sorry. Okay. That is about depriving. So the question I saw about loss and grief, sorry for that, loss and grief, it's about those phases of loss and grief. Wengine wanaziita dabda. Is it dabda? Denial, anger, bargaining, depression, acceptance. Dabda. End question on. Aki muko ama mulienda? Najiongelesha. Oh, you know, I told you I don't have patience in using the silence skill.
Tuko.
So I hope you accept me that way.
There has to be two-way communication.
Okay. Let me see. As you are maybe looking at, if you have any question, what you need to ask. Let me check one of the PowerPoints, if I can be able to trace it. By the way, my laptop is not working, so I'm trying to get some presentations from my email. That's why at times it's becoming so difficult for me. Oh, now what have I done? Nimezima email. Aha. No. Let me see the one which is here. We are going to look at stress. That is the next one which I've gotten. Imagine I'm going to the email, trying to download. Laptop yangu imenilete down. Let me save it on the desktop so that I can be able to share it. By the way, as even working on this, what is stress? What is stress? This is something we need to be asking ourselves. And what I've also seen in the exam, they mostly ask about the phases of stress. Touch briefly on all. Hii ni ya zamani ama ni ya saa hii? Oh, someone is right. Okay. Jua niko na kamoshene nakimbia tena kuona ni nini hiyo mnaniandikia. Which one is this? Okay. I have something small here, but I'll add meat to it as we move on. I'll add meat to it as we move on. Okay, let's look at stress. And there are a few things I need to emphasize on stress because I might not be able to go through everything. But when you sit down and you're going through this topic of stress, it's good first you understand what is stress. What is stress? Then after that, you also need to know some of the symptoms of stress. No, not symptoms. First, know what are the causes of stress. What can make one to go through stress? If you're not able to know the causes of stress, then you need to know what are some of the signs or symptoms of stress. Okay? So those are the things also you need to put at the back of your mind, especially when you're looking at the issue of stress. And under stress also, you need to understand some of the phases of stress. And in an exam, what I've seen, the ones I've seen, they're asking about those phases of stress, but it is also good you get to understand those phases. So I'll talk briefly about distress. And it is showing here, stress can arise from Either it can be good from a good experience or a bad experience. And that is what I usually ask. Is stress bad? Stress is not bad. Stress is good. But when, if you don't have any stress, then it means you are not going to jog your mind. By the way, stress makes us to start jogging our mind. Like I didn't know I was going to be able to sit down to take you through yesterday's session and today's session without even knowing whether I'm doing something good or bad. But it's like I had now to learn to adjust. This is a stressor. I was being stressed that I have to. This is something which needed me to respond to. So you find that at times when you are having this stress, it is not always bad. It jogs your mind. You start maybe becoming active and you start looking at things in a different way than the way you are looking at them. And this stress, it makes you like someone was asking me, you had a class from 2 up to 4, then from 5 to 7. How did you manage? Maka namwambia ni kujaribu. And even today now she comes here, the way I told you that I had visitors, it's like, I've called you, you're not picking the calls. I had to walk here and see what you're doing because she doesn't know that I have some stress. And when we talk about stress, it is that demand which needs you to respond to. And stress is like when the pressure is so much than the resources at your disposal, which you need to use so that you can be able to respond to these issues, they can overwhelm you. That's why we say stress is good. And when it's good, we call it eustress, which makes your mind, you start jogging your mind, you start becoming active, you start looking for solutions on how you're going to address those issues. And if you are not able to respond to those demands, the pressure now becomes more than the resources at your disposal, then this one is going to take you to what we call distress. And that is why you find most people are in hospitals. They are sick. Wanapimwa hakuna ugonjwa. Not that as they're in the hospital, they are sick, but they're not sick is because of those stressors. In the sense that they had that stress, they didn't know how to respond to it. And in the process, they started having those psychosomatic syndromes. Unajua unaweza kuwa na stress na kupeleka to distress, which can bring those other illnesses or diseases, ukipimwa hakuna kitu. That's why you find even in hospitals, some people are being taken through the counseling sessions so that they can be able to understand. Oh my, sorry, battery is going down. Let me charge it. Sorry. So when we talk about this stress, it can be defined as a normal feeling of emotional or physical tension for which the body is designed to experience or to react to when there is that demand. And we say the stress can be positive or it can be negative. When it's positive, we say good stress is called eustress. And this one, by the way, it is characterized by stress that can help motivate or inspire you. Like from yesterday, I was not aware that we were going to have this, but when we started, it's like I had to do something. So it is that it can motivate you. And this stress can be positive, keeping us alert, keeping us motivated, ready to avoid that anger. Like now, if you have an exam, you know, an exam is a stressor. Anything which pushes you, any demand is a stressor. And you have this exam, you have that anxiety, but you're working hard, you want to sit for this paper. You want to finish this paper. And that one, it's a good stress because it's pushing you to get things done. Kama kuna hiyo stress, by the way, huwezi fanya hiyo exam. And then we have the negative one. And this is why you find most people, when they have this stress, they are not able to respond to the demands because they don't have the resources. Then instead of them addressing that issue, they go back, they start using alcohol. or they start using that avoidance. As you use it, ukienda kulala, ukiamuka asubuhi, another stressor comes in. So stress becomes negative when a person faces continuous challenges without relief or relaxation between the stressors, that you cannot be able to manage to respond to them because the demands are so high, the pressure is so much, you don't have enough resources to respond to them. So as a result, a person becomes so overworked and the stress-related tension builds up. Hii siwezi, nitafanya kesho. Ukiacha ingine inakuja kesho na ile ya leo iko, so it becomes so much. So bad stress is referred as distress. So we have examples of eustress and distress, examples of positive stress, starting a new school, making new friends, moving into new home. You know, that's a new stress. Ukifika, hata umesahau, sijui nini hakuna kwa hii room, sijui nini, hiyo ni stress, but which is a good stress. Getting a new baby in the family, moving in, taking vacation, holidays, playing, taking classes and learning a new hobby. By the way, these are positive stresses. But when we have the negative stressors, this is when maybe you have undergone through a death of a loved one, parents divorcing or separating, losing contact with loved ones, being hospitalized, hizo zote. You have been injured, maybe you've been abused, there's that being abused or neglected, conflict in relationships, hizo zote ni ma-stressor. Pesa ndio hiyo, gona corona vile inatusumbua, there's no money. Family issues are there because everything is about money. Then, what I wanted us to look at is the phases of stress. That's why I said I was going to add a few things here. When we talk about stress, there are some phases of stress. And when you look at these phases of stress, there are three. One is the alarming phase. Two is the resistance phase. Three is the exhaustion phase. And this is the one which came in an exam once. You talk about the phases of stress. So if you have stress, kuna kale ka alarming, unaona hapa, things are not going, that's why I told you it's good you get to know the signs and the symptoms. If you don't know the causes, then know the signs. And these are the ones we say during the alarming, there might be some small symptoms unaona. Ndio either you fight, and there's that fight and flight. Fight is whereby you address that demand, or you run away from that, you're running away, that is the flight. So that is the alarming phase. Kuna kadalili kanakuja tu. Then resistance phase, this is where you start feeling fatigued. This is where you feel like you cannot be able to address it. This is where you feel like you cannot be able to do things. Then the third phase is the, nimesema, resistance phase. Resistance phase, this is where now your body shuts down. Yani you cannot even be able to respond to anything. You are just there. You cannot be able to think. You cannot be able to act. You cannot be able to, you are just there. So that is why we say it's good you get to know what can cause you stress. If you cannot know, because it's kumebadilika, then you need to know what are some of the signs. Ndio ukiona umeanza kukua na kasira kidogo, ndio unaona ukianza kuwa fatigued. You know, when you become fatigued, that is under resistance. You are so tired. Na hujafanya kitu chochote. You are so fatigued. Then you know, hapo imeanza kufika resistance. Then now when your body shuts down, you are just there, you're doing nothing. Those are some of the phases of stress. So please go through those phases of stress. Then what are some of the strategies? And these ones are mostly related to work, intentional job design. You can have clear and open communication, positive work culture, employee accountability, wellness programs in your organization, so that someone can be able to have somewhere they can talk about their issues, and the other management strategies or skills for stress. I'll just add to these ones. 1, you need to be assertive. 2, you need to manage your time management. 3, you need to avoid procrastination. If you have to manage stress, You need to avoid procrastination. That is, you need to avoid postponing issues. 4, you need to work on your perfectionism. Perfectionists, they are never ready or willing to delegate their work. They want to do everything. It's like if I give it to Flora, tafanya vile nataka. So you want to do everything. Utakufa na stress. 5, you need to learn to delegate. And please don't delegate what you don't like. Delegate even the wet places. You know, wet places ni mahali mtu anaweza pata kakitu. What are only delegating the dry ones? Hata hapa akigonga mawe hakuna maji itatoka. So the perfectionists, they have to work on delegation because they rarely delegate because they say that this other person is not going to do the work the way they want it to be done. 6, you also need to learn to share. Sharing, talking, by the way, it can help you to get relieved. Then you need to be relaxed. Relax. And like some people, you relax, you take your holiday. I know some people, when you take a holiday, unajiuliza, haki niko na pesa kweli, ngoja nikipata pesa ndio niende leave. When you go leave, you come back worse than when you are at work. And you're supposed to go and re-engineer and you come when you are fresh. But learn to relax. And relaxing is like listen to the music you love, you enjoy, kama ni ya paga listen, kama ni Christian, kama ni reggae, which makes you to feel happy. Then the self-care. Self-care is whereby you take care of yourself, your diet, you do exercises. Yeah, the exercises, they are very good. And an added advantage for the diet or self-care is whereby try to have good sex. And that is if you're married. If you're not, use the other skills, but don't use this one. If you are, have a good sex. And I don't know what it means, but sex is not the act, sex is in the mind. If you do that, it is going to help you to manage your stress. That is the end of stress I've just mentioned, because I didn't go through the signs and symptoms, hizo mtazisoma tu, but get to know the phases of stress and also get to know the management of that stress. I wanted to look at what else I can be able to present. Siji kama nilipata. Any question on stress? Please go through those phases in detail. Hello. Aki mimi, I need to be trained on to work on the silent scale, patience. But I'm aware of it. Yeah. It is in my, how do we call it? The known to all. Remember the Joaris window? There are those things you are aware about, but I'm really working on it so that I learn to give people space so that they think first before they respond. And again, we said when the silence prolongs, unakuja ndani unawauliza, ni nini? Munanyamaza nini? Kuna kitu? If I don't get those slides, I will only mention briefly about HIV. I think it's HIV. And then we have alcoholism. Those are the ones remaining. Which ones are remaining? Hello.
I think just HIV.
Yes, HIV and alcoholism. If I don't get it, we'll just have to share. Unless now I go back to my email. I get what is there. Just give me a minute. In loss and grief. Depriving. Kama siku manage kupata those other ones. But what we do, we can briefly go through and for the exam, stress. haiko hapa. I'm very sorry for that. But what I wanted to talk about, let's look at HIV and AIDS. HIV and AIDS. So, okay. When we talk about the issues of HIV and AIDS, I know some people say that HIV haina shida, but understand what is the difference, by the way, between HIV and AIDS? Is there a difference? And this one, you find that mostly there are some people, if they're asked to differentiate what HIV is, they cannot. What is the difference about HIV and what is AIDS? And we say when we talk about HIV, this is when we have a virus which cannot be detected by our naked eyes. It can only be detected when you go through the testing. And this virus, by the way, you can live with that virus. If it is not, you are not reinfecting yourself, you can live with that virus for so many years before you go to the AIDS stage. And when we talk about AIDS, it's now when you have acquired those opportunistic illnesses, the syndromes. And by the way, HIV doesn't kill. What kills, it is the opportunistic illness. Unasikia mtu amepata pneumonia, alikuwa amedaurea, alikuwa sijui asthmatic, alikuwa sijui na what. The HIV doesn't kill. And that's why we say a person who has HIV can still be able to get a child. Someone is saying, discuss 6 steps useful to help an employee who is living with HIV and AIDS. Okay, we're going to look at that, but I just wanted to talk about it first. Then from there, we can be able to look at it. How can we be able to help a person who is living with HIV and AIDS? Okay, so I just wanted to give it a brief. So even in our organizations, we usually talk about the employees who are there. You can either be infected or you be affected. So all of us, all these people, they need to be supported. And if in your organization as an HR, what do you need to do? What do you need to do so that you can be able to help your staff? And this is what we said, you give them a talk on HIV. And if a person is living with HIV, is it that his services are going to be terminated? Okay, so that is what we need to be giving that information to our staff. We try to educate them that being positive, it doesn't mean that you're not going to perform. So like the question I've seen under HIV and AIDS, they were asking, how can you help, how was it asking? How can you help a client, the staff or the people who are living with HIV and AIDS to live positively? Mutawasaidia aje? What can you do? Yes, Nancy. How can
Okay, we can encourage them to live positively by demonstrating to them or even sharing stories of people who have lived with HIV, and then they have, they're living their potential, they're living their best lives, as long as they take care of themselves in terms of nutrition, in terms of taking their drugs, etc. They are normal people.
So they can be able to be taking their drugs. How can you be able to help a person living with HIV to live positively? Yes? Mtawasaidia aje? Hey, people. Like what Nancy has said, was just said at least a point. Yes, what else can you do to help a person who is living positively? Hey. Hapa sasa ndio nimeona ni mimi tu nilikuwa naongea. Yeah?
They should be treated, I think, like any other employees if it's in the workplace. They should not be discriminated against. They should do the tasks the same as the duties, similar to those other people, the other tasks that they are doing.
So they should not be discriminated, but how are you going to, yes, they are not going to be discriminated, but how are you going to make them to live in a positive way? They accept their status. Having HIV is a condition. You are tested, you have HIV, alafu unakuwa discriminated. But other people, they are tested who are diabetic, they have maybe cancer, those ones we mingle with them well because that's also a terminal illness. Even HIV is a terminal illness. Yes. I can see someone has put in the chat. Encourage and help them seek medical care as required. Yes. How to add to what you have said, how we can help these people to live positively. One, you have to help them so that they can be able to change their attitude. They have a positive attitude. The other one, they have to accept their status, the condition in which they are. Once they accept, yes, I'm now positive. It's like a time I had a training on HIV, and I brought a person who was living positive. Alisema tuliambiana, you want to live, atanambia virus, anauliza virus, do you want to live? Yes, I also want to live. So to cooperate, tukae pamoja. Because if I die, you're also going to die. So you make this client to accept their condition. They follow their medical status. Yeah, medical schedule, sorry. If they have that medication, can they be able to follow that? Can they be able to share and talk about their issues, their conditions, wherever they are? It makes that client to feel like, or that person to accept the situation in which they are, and they're going to move on. Okay, so those are some of the things you need to do. And by the way, also don't discriminate them, like what someone has said, like at someone anakuja sasa wewe utafanya hii kazi because you are positive. Let them do the work because they can perform. It's not that they cannot be able to work. They can, and give them that chance so that they can be able to do it. Yes, kuna kitu mungetaka kusema on that? So about that HIV, those are some of the questions which I've seen under HIV, but try to understand, like you as an HR, please, like when did you review your policy in your organization? Muliona lini mwisho? And that is why you find some people here, they have a policy, but it is outdated. And we say that you need to be reviewing your policy. And this policy is the one you need to use so that you help your staff members to understand what is entailed in that policy. They have a right. And under that policy of HIV, the chunk of it is for HR. HR is the one which has the biggest portion in that policy. So please help your client so that they can be able to understand what it entails. So when someone is sick, they have a right. They can be given an off. They go to hospital to pick their medications. So you should not start hiding and you keep it to yourself. Sensitize people, bring people to test them, let people know about their status. So that is your role as HR. If you don't do that, then so many people are going to perish. Okay. Anything else? Hello. About the issue of alcoholism, is it okay with HIV before I move to alcoholism? There's something I wanted to share, but I'm not seeing it here. That's what I was looking for. But still, if there's any question, maybe you can be able to ask. Can we move to something else because of time?
Yeah.
Oh, it's already 7 o'clock. So let me briefly talk about the issue of alcoholism. And alcoholism, it's an issue in our workplaces. Please understand what is alcoholism. And when we are using this substance, it is a substance. Alcoholism is like when you take it, it changes, it alters the way we think, the way we reason. And at times, staff members or their employees can be addicted. Addicted in the sense that they get hooked. They cannot be able to do without that drinking. Like there's a client, I had a session 2 days ago. He has been working and ameonekana ni wa kukunywa. And he told me, you know, the worst part of it is when I came to work and they found me in the washroom sleeping there. Imagine a person has come to that extent. And he told me he didn't want to come for counseling. Ni mdosi wake amempush that he has to come for that session. So it's kind of like, this is involuntary, but do you think it's going to be of any help for you if you're going to sit here for a counseling session? Yes, I know I have a problem. So how do we come in so that we don't transfer the problem from the workplace to the community? Ati hiyo amekuwa mlevi sana ni kumwachisha kazi. So where you have sent him to, is that not another problem you have eliminated to that place? And you as HR, before you write that letter, show cause why a disciplinary action cannot be taken against you, you need to talk to this staff member about if you have observed they're abusing alcohol. You need, after talking and they're not taking any initiative, you need to give them a warning letter. You need to send them for a counseling session. They can even be referred to a rehab center whereby they can be able to be assisted to come out of that alcohol. So that anytime you're coming to take that disciplinary action, you have already tried your best. Like my client was telling me 2 days ago, mi naona kazi yangu inaenda kuisha. Kuleta mpaka hapa, ninaona sita survive. I know after this, if they're not going to see any change, mi naona kazi ikiisha. And this is where we say, when you are looking at the confrontation, are the clients seeing the consequences of their actions? This way you're challenging them. Yes, you are taking alcohol. What are you expecting out of this abuse of alcohol? Naona nikipoteza kazi, naona tena sijawahi pata promotion, naona everyone is not relating with me well. They are aware. So what do you need to do differently so that you don't lose this job, so that you can be able to get a promotion? I want to come out of it. I want to stop it. So one of the questions I've seen them asking, and alcoholism is like, you discuss the social effects of alcoholism. By the way, what are some of the social effects of alcoholism?
Loss of jobs, divorce.
Hey, Nancy anaziweka zote, divorce na loss of job. Yes, yes they are. Hey people, Subrini ulienda wapi? What are the social effects of alcoholism?
Death.
Death, yeah, some people can die because of it.
Conflict
It affects organs in our organs, and what, like the liver.
Yeah, and death.
Imejaa maji hapo ni kuenda imechomeka kabisa, ni kama ulikuwa na roast.
Getting into debt also. Debt.
Yes, debt, madeni kabisa. Yani anaomba kwa huyu kulipia huyu na alipe, yani ni kama ni chain. Yes. The effects of alcoholism, there can be that poor work relationship with the workmates at the workplace. That loss of self-control. This is where you find when you are taking alcohol, anyone after midnight is beautiful or handsome. Ukiamuka asubuhi unajikuta, gari nilikuwa nimelala na social flora. God, where was I looking? Yeah, because you can get yourself maybe getting infected with HIV. You can even maybe commit a crime there. It can bring so many things. It can also make you even to fail meeting your targets or your responsibilities at the workplace. It can make you to cause accidents, even printing, and badala ya kuweka 1 unaweka 10 because you want it. And maybe the financial misuse, as you have said, loss of a job, all these ones, it can be able to take place. Even if the people, and when you're looking at this, please look at the general effects of alcoholism. They can ask about social, they can ask about emotional, they can ask about behavioral. So please look at it. Those are the issues of alcoholism, which I wanted to look at. And anyone who is an alcoholic is a sick person. So treat that staff member as a sick person, and you see what kind of intervention you need to bring in. Once you talk to them, you refer them to counseling, you give them a warning letter, you send them to a rehab center. Then from there, when they come, they relapse, you've already done your best. But we usually say when a client is abusing alcohol or drugs, and unless they are willing to change, that person will not change. If they enter on the wheel of change, gurudumu la gari, then he contemplates, I want to, si ako hapa nje, aki nataka niache hii pombe, nitafanya achi niache, ako nje. Akiingia ndani anasema, me, I want to stop drinking. Then you take them through that wheel until where they reach that they want to maintain it. Instead of maintaining, they relapse. We say a person relapses 7 times before they stand on their feet. And the person who has been using alcohol or drugs, we call them recoveries. Anytime they can relapse. There are so many things which can trigger. If there's no that support, they can still go back to the same. So if you're telling them to stop using this alcohol, what are you replacing it with? Because that time used to be free, used to drink. So is free time ataifanyia nini? So those are things you need to look at when you are supporting. And any person who is struggling to stop using alcohol, please try to give him or her all the support you can. Okay? All the support you have. So please read about those effects. Those are some of the questions I've seen coming under alcoholism. But what I can also stress so much, please go through the theories intensively. Understand so that you don't confuse one theory with the other. Ethics, go through them, understand those principles. The issue of confidentiality, please also go through that. Then for you, you'll be okay and set for that. End question up to there. I know
mine is an application question,
yes.
Malibu.
Yes.
You gave us an example of a staff who was sent for counseling without his consent or will. What is the effect, or is that even right from where we sit as HR practitioners?
Remember, counseling, as we said, it can be voluntary or involuntary. And that is why we say the other helping activities, like as we talked about guidance, it's a helping activity. Advice giving is a helping activity, information giving, even befriending. These are the people you as an HR, you observe them. You remember what makes you to know this person needs to be assisted. You know how they have been behaving, but all of a sudden their behaviors have changed. Then this employee is not seeing that there's need for him or her to go for counseling. But you have seen hapa, kuna kakasoro kidogo. You try to befriend this person so that you can lure him, he comes closer to you, then you can be able to have a talk with him. That's why we say you can use the counseling skills without you counseling. And as much as you know what you're doing is to help this client, it's okay. Like the one who came and he was like, I'm not willing, I was not ready for this. And if I wanted to counseling, not in the same environment. I told him, do you think that you have any issue which we need to address? Mimi mashida niko nazo nyingi. So in fact, when he came, he said, we are going to have in the next section. Kwanza nitakupigia nikwambie how I'm progressing. And then we are meeting next week. Then from there, already he knows, but he didn't want to come out. But you as an HR, if you see such a like, you need to save an individual. He'll come to appreciate. So that is why you compare how your employee has been, then you see the way they are behaving, they're acting, they're conducting themselves, then hapo unaona hapa kuna kashida, but this person is not coming out. you can still befriend this person, you talk to them, and you see, like, I'm observing the way you have been and the way you are, kuna kakasoro kidogo. Is there anything maybe you need to share with me, or it can be of help? Then from there, if you see he needs a counseling session, then you can refer him or her to see a counselor in a very kind way. So there's no harm in that. And by the way, like, there's a case study we were doing, yeah? One staff was very busy. Kazi yake ni kazi, kazini asubuhi. Akikuja nyumbani ako na laptop, ni kazi kwa nyumba. Hata akasahau is a husband. Yes, he's a father, but he forgot he's a husband. The wife needed him, but he was not there. The wife went to the workplace kwa HR. Mimi nauliza mzee wangu, mnampea kazi hapa, akikuja nyumbani ni kazi, it's not even there for us. Then the boss told him, I guess you need to go and see a counselor. I don't have an issue. Just go and see a counselor. So when he went to that therapy room, alifika tu, pap, have been told to come and see you. So how do you want me to help you? Me, I don't have a problem. It's the boss who has told me that my wife came to report me. So what has the wife maybe reported about you? That I'm not there for them. I'm very busy doing, he has problems. Then from there, he started talking. And then he was being asked, like, suppose, if a miracle happens, what do you expect when you go back home and you do it and you'll find some happiness? Akasema tu nikifika hivi, if I'll start smiling and they smile back to me, nitakuwa na raha sana. Already that's a therapy. So people refuse, they don't have issues. They have, but they are not aware they have them. So you can pick on that. Another concern? Evelyn, have I responded?
Yes, thank you.
Hello, hello. So we have come to an end for my presentation. Unless there's any question or any clarification or any clarity, I know it was so much within a very short period, but now when you sit down and you come across some of the terms or some of the things we have mentioned in this discussion, maybe it will be of so helpful to you. Let me get from you how the sharing has been from yesterday until today. And I've really appreciated for your availability, for choosing to attend in this training. And I hope there's something, whether small, even if it is 0.0, you pick from this session, it will be helpful for you today and the future. Yes. I don't take it for granted. And someone to talk something before we end up this presentation.
For me, I enjoyed the session, but it should have, the time allocated, as you've said, it has been too short. So probably it needs to be redesigned such that it can be done longer, for more days.
I know. Ndio tuko tunasema jana, kwanza theories, they are so heavy. Yeah? Yes. Thank you so much. Yes. Another feedback?
Thank you. I think the session was helpful. Some of us have an exam on Monday, so tudishtaki sisi ni wale tulichungulia tukaona we need some help.
Okay.
So thank you. That was helpful indeed.
And I hope it will help you. I'm wishing you the best.
You. Yes, asante.
Thank you. Thank you, Evelyn. Yes. Tuko tu wawili.
The rest are attendees. I'm not sure they're able to comment, unless they're admitted to the panel. Yeah.
No problem. So thank you so much. I'm wishing you all the best, and let's continue networking from now, and let's continue being friends, and let's tap the potentials of each other. Thank you so much, and God bless you.
Asante, good evening.
Bye. Bye.
Bye.
I can see someone here. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.